Well, from a sweet tooth to biting your nails, how do you say goodbye to a bad habit? Joining us now is psychotherapist Dr. Mike Dowd. It is great to have you. We all have bad habits, and we all find it a little bit daunting to try and get in there and tackle them. So you have sort of a few simple strategies for getting to the bottom of a bad habit, starting with the worry jar.
Yes. So every person I've ever treated who has a bad habit, I found that habits, whether you're biting your nails or you're eating too many cookies, it's fueled by anxiety, right? It's fueled by our worries. So one simple strategy, and this is actually from our book, Think, Act, and Be Happy. And this was actually what one woman in the book did. She wrote her story in our book. Okay. She created this worry jar, right? And in this worry jar, she wrote down all of her old fears that never came true. Right? And then when you look at this worry jar, this is actually my worry jar. So I wrote down all of the things that I used to worry about, all of these things that never came true.
I feel like I need a bigger jar, Mike.
You might. But you know what's so funny about our thoughts, and if we can change the way we think, when we look at something like this, we realize that most of the worries in our head, that these fears, they're probably not going to come true. And it helps us to feel more calm, and then we don't bite our nails, we don't reach for that cookie jar, we don't reach for that cigarette, or whatever habit it is that we're struggling with. So it really helps us to be more calm. Okay,
so the theory here then is that all these bad habits are based on the worries.
Yes.
So if we can tackle the worries, then we can get rid of the bad habit.
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay. There are actual solid steps, actionable steps you're saying that we should take in order to start getting rid of the bad habits. One of them is to create contrary evidence. So talk to me a little bit about this tip.
Yeah, so contrary evidence, that's what all of these are, right? Okay. So this is the contrary evidence that sort of negates the thought. So there are certain thought patterns. So it's the pessimistic thinking, right? The sort of, oh my God, I'm sitting at home and my husband hasn't come home yet, and it's, you know, I wonder what catastrophic thing might have happened, and that's when people are right? I hear some laughter. It's like, oh, I know what that thought sounds like. And that's when you go for that, you know, that milkshake or that cookie or that cigarette. So that's what the contrary evidence really is. Okay. And you realize that you can actually turn that off and train your brain in a way so that you can actually feel more calm and peaceful and sit quietly until he comes home.
So what are you saying to yourself? You're saying to yourself, well, actually, he comes home every day, so why would I think today would be any different? Yeah. Or sometimes he works late, so he could just be late. There's also traffic. Is that what you're doing? You're coming up with that list?
You're really using the tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what my book is all about. Yes. And you're not confusing the possible with the probable, right? When we give a lot of brain power to the possible, there are a lot of things that could possibly go wrong. You know, I'm from Los Angeles, but we're here in Toronto. Could we possibly have a terrible earthquake here? I guess it's possible, but it's not probable. Right? And if we give most of our energy to what is probable, we tend to feel our brains, our bodies feel more calm. We can sit quietly without reaching for anything to make us feel better.
Yeah, distract us or reward us. Emotional eating is like, who isn't an emotional eater? Like, come on. Yeah. Some of us eat when we're happy, some of us eat when we're sad. I eat with both. Bored as well, you know. It can be a celebration, it can be a funeral. I want to eat. So can we talk a little bit about how we can differentiate and figure out if we are emotional eating or actually eating based on hunger?
Yes, so emotional eating I think is one of the most common bad habits. So just stop and check in and ask yourself, is my hunger coming from above the neck or below the neck? And what I mean by that is it above the neck, mental, emotional, like as you said, you eat when you're happy, you eat when you're sad. That's actually above the neck hunger. Yes. Or is it below the neck hunger? Is it coming on slowly, 4 hours after your last meal or your last snack? And if we can actually become more aware of our bodies, we can actually change and rewire the brain and train the brain to only eat when we are experiencing that below the neck hunger.
That would be amazing. That would be so good. Now you have some advice specifically for perfectionists as well.
Yes, and this is a good one because I'm a perfectionist in recovery.
Okay, what did you do to fix that?
So you have to start to train your brain to not see in these really rigid, polarized, if I'm not a complete success, I'm a complete failure, right? So if I don't get an A+ at everything, then I'm a failure. So it is okay if you go home and you have a dinner party, and that dinner party is a C if you are an A+ mom that night, right? It is okay to write, if I write an article, I've written lots of articles, I've written lots of books, it's okay if that article is not the best article I've ever written. It can be an A- article once in a while.
Yes.
If I was actually spending time with my family that weekend, you know?
That's right.
And it's really giving yourself credit and training your brain to give yourself credit for what you're doing right, as opposed to fixating on, you know, what you're doing wrong, that one little thing that could have been a little bit better, because we can drive ourselves crazy if we fixate on those.
And we do. How long does it take to retrain your brain?
If you actually work these steps in about 30 days, you can start to notice that they become sort of your default. So in the beginning, when you start to train your brain, it becomes, in the beginning, it feels sort of conscious, like conscious effort. It feels like, oh, this is something I have to do. But after the 5th, 6th, 7th time, much like a habit, you know, after about 30 days, it's a habit. After about 30 days of this, it becomes your default. So it no longer becomes, you know, because the way the brain wires itself, when you do something over and over again, it just becomes your default way of being, and it becomes easier.
Okay, it's all about the retraining. I love that. Well, Dr. Mike's new book, Think, Act, Be Happy, How to Use Chicken Soup for the Soul Stories to Train Your Brain to Be Your Own Therapist, is now available. Thank you for this information.